Now we're in James chapter 3, verse 6. And the tongue is a little fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. Unquote. Let's look at Young's literal translation. Quote, and the tongue is a fire, the world of the unrighteousness. So the tongue is set in our members, which is spotting our whole body, and is setting on fire the course of nature, and is set on fire by the Gehenna. Unquote. The ESV version, quote, and the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. Unquote. Now James uses the Greek word for the tongue 3 different times in James 3:5, 3:6, and 3:8, as we mentioned in the previous verse. And the tongue is a fire. Now the Greek word for is a fire is only used 1 time by James, period. No one else uses it. Continuing, a world of iniquity. So let's look at the phrase of iniquity. That there is used 29 times in the King James Bible, but in the Greek it is only used by Luke once, and then in Acts twice, 2 Thessalonians once, and of course James uses it 1 time. Let's read 2 Thessalonians 2:7. Quote, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let, and until he be taken out of the way. In Acts 8:23, quote, for I perceive that thou art in the gall of bitterness, and in the bond of iniquity. And let's look at Luke. Luke 13:27, quote, but he shall say, I tell you, I know you not, whence ye are. Depart from me, all ye workers of iniquity. Unquote. Now looking at the definition for this iniquity, specifically unrighteousness by which others are deceived. Phrase having reference to sins of the tongue. Continuing, so is, as Parisis is out. It's written in the present tense, passive voice, indicative mood. Written concerning now, it's being done to, and it's a matter of fact. Continuing, the tongue, among our members, that it defileth. Now let's parse that out. That's written in the present tense, active voice, participle mood. So now to you, and it's either ing or ed, in this case, ed. So let's look at this phrase, that it defileth. It's used 1 time in the Greek in the entire King James Bible here in James. So let's go ahead and look at the definition of this. The definition of this is to defile, spot. Continuing, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire. Let's parse that out. That's written in the present tense, active voice, participle mood. So it is being done now. It's being done to the person that's saying it or hearing it. And it's either an ed or ing. So setteth would be on fire. So let's take a look at this phrase. Used 1 time by James in the King James Bible and only by him. The definition of this Greek word is to ignite, set on fire, to burn up, to operate destructively. Continuing, the course. That Greek word is used 3 times, once by James, another times in Luke 1:5. In the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias of the course of Abiah, and his wife was the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. and also in Ephesians 2:2, wherein in time past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. When you define the course, it is defined as a wheel. Continuing, of nature. That's used one time by James, and only James in the Greek in the King James Bible. The course of nature. Define it, life, origin. Continuing. And it is set on fire. Let's parse that out. Present tense, so now. Passive voice being done to. Participle mood, ing or ed, as far as the verb goes. So let's look at it. It is set on fire. Let's take a look at that phrase. Used by James once in the New Testament. So no one seems to needed to have explained that at all later on as the books were written in the New Testament. So that is defined as to ignite, set on fire, operate destructively. So continuing on, it is set on fire of hell. Let's look at this word hell and the definition of it. Hell is a place of future punishment called Gehenna of fire. This was originally the valley of Hinnom, south of Jerusalem, where the filth and dead animals of the city were cast out and burned, a fit symbol of the wicked and their future destruction. Now let's continue on to John Gill's commentary on this verse. Quote, and the tongue is a fire. Unquote. It is like to fire, very useful in its place to warm and comfort, so as the tongue in Christian conversation and in the ministry of the word. The hearts of God's children burn within them while they are talking together and while the scriptures of truth are opening to them. But as fire should be carefully watched and kept, so should men take heed to their ways, that they sin not with their tongue, and keep their tongue from evil, and their lips from speaking guile. For as fire kindles and rises up into a flame, so unchaste, angry, and passionate words stir up the flame of lust, anger, envy, and revenge. And as fire is of a spreading nature, so are lies, scandal, and evil reports vented by the tongue. And as fire devours all that comes in its way, so are the words of an evil tongue, and therefore are called devouring words. See Psalms chapter 52, verse 4. Quote, thou loveth all devouring words, O thou deceitful tongue. Unquote. Continuing. They devour the good names of men, and corrupt their good manners, and destroy those who make use of them. And what wood is to fire, and coals to burning coals, that are whisperers, talebearers, backbiters, and contentious persons to strife. See Proverbs chapter 26, verse 20. Quote, where no wood is, there the fire goeth out. So where there is no talebearer, the strife ceases. Unquote. Continuing. Quote, a world of iniquity. Unquote. That is, as the world is full of things and full of sin, for it lies in wickedness, so is the tongue full of iniquity. There is a world of it in it, it abounds with it. It cannot well be said how much sin is in it and done and occasioned by it, as blasphemy against God, Father, Son, and Spirit, cursing of men, imprecarious on themselves, their souls, their bodies, on others, with a multitude of profane and dreadful oaths, obscene, filthy, and unchaste words, angry, wrathful, and passionate ones, lies, flatteries, reproaches, backbitings, whisperings, tongue-bearers. And the Jews say that he that uses an evil tongue multiplies transgression, and that it is equal to idolatry, adultery, and murder, and the cause of all sin, in which they express by way of fable in this manner. In Adam's sin, God laid hold on him, and split his tongue into two parts, and said unto him, the wicked which is or shall be in the world, thou hast begun with an evil tongue. Wherefore I will make all that come into the world know that thy tongue is the cause of this. The Syriac version renders this clause thus, The world of iniquity is as wood or a branch of a tree. The tongue is fire, and a wicked world is fuel to it. Quote, so is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body. Unquote. The body, Polek, the whole nation, filling it with contention, strife, division, and confusion. And the ecclesiastic body, the church, by sowing discord, fomenting animosities, making parties, and spreading errors and heresies, whereby the temple of God is defiled, and the natural body, and the several members of it, even the whole person of a man, soul and body, bringing unto him a blot of infirmity and reproach, never to be wiped off, as for instance the vice of the tongue, lying does, and oftentimes through the tongue, the actions done to the body, which seems good, are quite spoiled. Quote, and setteth on fire the course of nature, unquote, or wheel of nature, the natural body, as before, in which there is a continual rotation or circulation of the blood, by which it is supported. This is the wheel broken at the sinister at death, in Ecclesiastes 12, verse 6, quote, or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the sinister. Unquote. Continuing, or the course of a man's life and action, yea, of all generations, and the vicissitudes and changes which have happened in them, on which the tongue has a great influence, and so the Syriac version renders it, quote, and sets on fire the series of our genealogies, or our generations, which run like wheels, unquote. Or it may intend the flame of nature, the whole fabric of the universe, and the general conflagration of it, which will be owing to the tongue, or because men's tongues are against the Lord, to provoke the eyes of his glory, because of the hard speeches which ungodly sinners have spoken against Christ and his people, of which they will be convinced by flames of fire about them. Quote, and it is set on fire of hell, unquote. That is, by the devil, for as heaven sometimes is put for God, who dwells in heaven. See Matthew 21:25. Quote, the baptism of John, whence was it? From heaven or of men? And they reasoned with themselves, saying, if we shall say, from heaven, he will say unto us, why did you not then believe him? Unquote. Continuing, so hell is put for the devil, whose habitation it is. See Matthew 16, verse 18. Quote, and I say also unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Unquote. Continuing, and the sense is that the tongue is influenced and stirred up by Satan to speak many evil things, and it will be hereafter set on fire in hell, as the tongue of the rich man in Luke 16:24. Quote, and he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water, and cool my tongue, for I am in torment in its flame. Unquote. Continuing, to which purpose are those words of the Talmud. Quote, whoever uses an evil tongue, the holy blessed God says to hell, I concerning him above, and thou concerning him below, will judge him, as it is said in Proverbs 120, verse 3. Quote, what shall be given unto thee, or what shall be done unto thee, thou false tongue? Unquote. Continuing, what shall be done to thee, thou false tongue? Sharp arrows of the mighty, with coals of juniper. There is no arrow but the tongue, according to Jeremiah 9, verse 8. Quote, their tongue is an arrow shot out, it speaketh deceit. One speaketh peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but in his heart he layeth in wait. Unquote. Continuing, and there is no mighty one but God. Isaiah chapter 42, verse 13. Quote, and the Lord shall go forth as a mighty man, he shall stir up jealousy like a man of war. he shall cry, yea, roar, he shall prevail against his enemies, unquote. Continuing, coals of juniper, these are hell. This ends John Gill's commentary on James chapter 3, verse 6. Now, remember, James is the first book written in the New Testament. And James is the half-brother of Jesus, and he's written it to the dispersed Jews. So he's warning them against the tongue. This is not the first verse at all about the tongue. So he's putting some emphasis on this. The Holy Spirit is through him. So we need to pay attention to this verse. We need to pay attention to controlling our tongue, and to remember to continually pray and ask God for wisdom, as promised in James 1, and continually think about what we're about to say before we say it. This is Discovering the Scriptures. Please like and subscribe and tell others about this so that we may all walk in the Scriptures verse by verse, so that you may discover what's there and form your own thoughts, dogma, and doctrine, and live closer and closer to God. Thank you, and may God bless you richly.